What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome back to my channel. After taking the weekend off, we're back with my team preview and prediction videos. And today, we're going to be talking about the Iowa State Cyclones. Hey, if you guys enjoy, please leave a like. Also, consider subscribing if you're brand new to the channel or you just happen to enjoy this video. Ring the bell as well so you know when I upload. Every weekday, I'm going to be pumping out teams for you guys to preview and predict the record for. You guys want to stick around on the channel. Got a lot of stuff planned. You can also leave a comment down below. Tell me some teams you would like to see me do. And you can also comment down below what you think Iowa State is going to do in 2021. Iowa State is coming off the best season in program history last year. I mean, making the Big 12 title game, and they could have won it as well. And then they go to a New Year's Six Bowl and end up winning that. Iowa State is returning a lot of talent this year. And they definitely should be one of the best offenses in the country, at least in my opinion. But in order to know what we have to know what they're losing. And they're not losing a whole lot. Kene Nwangu was that backup running back behind Breece Hall. He has since, I believe, transferred out. So he will not be back. But again, as I just mentioned, they still have Breece Hall. So shouldn't be a huge problem. But they are losing top target Landon Akers, which is going to hurt that wide receiver group. But it shouldn't hurt them too much. Although Landon Akers, as I just said, was that top target. They definitely will be missing him. Some other guys are going to have to step up. And a tight end is leaving the Iowa State program as well. Show you why that's not a problem in a little bit. The Baileys on the defensive line, Jaquan and Joshua, are gone. They were pretty good on the defensive line, as was Latrell Bankston. He is also leaving. Arnold Azuna and Lawrence White are gone from the defensive backing group as well. And hey, as the saying goes, it's not about what you lost, it's about what you have. Iowa State's one of the top teams in returning production because look at what they're returning, especially on the offensive end. But there are some notable names on defense as well. Of course, quarterback Brock Purdy is coming back. He's going to have to step it up this year. Last year was a down season for Brock Purdy. He's going to have to play better this year if Iowa State's going to have a really successful season, like a lot of people, including myself, which you'll see in a little bit, think that they can't. Running back Breece Hall is coming off his nation-leading campaign. I did say last year that Breece Hall was a guy you got to watch out for. And I say the same this year. He is a phenomenal back and should be one of the best backs in 2021. Now, they did lose Landon Akers at wide receiver, but they still do have guys like Xavier Hutchinson, who is going to be that number one guy, and a guy by the name of Sean Shaw. Played a little bit last year. Was that number 3, number 4 guy. I think he's going to be that number 2 guy out there at the wide receiver, but not necessarily the second option, if you know what I mean, because at tight end, Iowa State has the best groups of tight end in the nation, and both of them are coming back from last year. That's Charlie Kohler and Chase Allen. These guys can do it all. Both of these guys are absolutely fantastic. They're at the tight end position. Both of them could be top 10 tight ends. Wait till you see my tight end list. But both of those guys are absolutely fantastic. Then on the defense, this could be one of the better defenses in the Big 12. I know, but I'm putting it out there now. Defensive lineman Will McDonald should be that the most prominent defensive lineman. And then returning Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, Mike Rose. So Mike Rose is coming back for Iowa State, and that is absolutely huge. I believe he had 4 or 5 interceptions last year. And played absolutely phenomenally. He will also be back in the linebacking position with Jake Hummel. Jake Hummel's another terrific defender, and the defensive backing group is going to be highlighted by Tavon Kyle. Tavon Kyle is a lot of fun to watch. You could throw some other names in there as well. But this Iowa State program does have a lot of talent. A quick look at their schedule and what they did last year. They were 9-3 last year, 8-2 in the Big 12. Of course, they were Big 12 runner-ups, and they ended up winning the Fiesta Bowl against the Oregon Ducks. There's a look at their schedule. Hey, I'm going to talk about some games more than others as they're more interesting to me. If the date gets highlighted in green, it's a win. If it gets highlighted in red, it's a loss. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about the Iowa State Cyclones, and they open off their season with the game against the University of Northern Iowa, and I'm going to highlight that one in green right now. I just don't see a way that Northern Iowa can win this game. I mean, Iowa State should be one of the top 10 teams in FBS, Northern Iowa being an FCS team. Should be an easy win for the Iowa State Cyclones before they get to play their rival. So the rivalry renewing this year, they're going to play the Iowa Hawkeyes. Now, the Hawkeyes are a team that's losing a lot on both lines, on the offensive and defensive line. They're losing a lot of talent there. But regardless, this should be a fun game. This should be a phenomenal game. If the game was on the road for the Cyclones, I might consider picking I might consider picking the Hawkeyes if the Hawkeyes were playing this game at home, but I just don't see it. I think Iowa State's got too much talent on both the offensive and defensive line. I think the tight ends are going to have a great game in this one. I especially think Breece Hall can get past that defense that Iowa has, which was one of the better ones last year, but it was highlighted by that defensive line. This should be a fun little battle, but I do think Iowa State's going to end up pulling it out in the end. UNLV is the next team up on the schedule. It is a road game for the Cyclones, and UNLV could be sporting quarterback Tate Martell, although that's not official. Does look like that's where Tate Martell is going to go. Now, of course, Tate Martell was at Ohio State, transferred out to Miami, never got time at Miami, and now is looking to go elsewhere. Probably going to end up being UNLV. But regardless, I don't see this one being remotely close. I see Iowa State being able to blow out the UNLV Rebels. And then Iowa State's going to get right into Big 12 play. And Iowa State's got a lot of tricky road games. And it starts off with the game in week 4 against the Baylor Bears. Now, you might say, well, why is Baylor a tricky road game? Well, they're losing Charlie Brewer. They're losing John Lovett. But Baylor is still all around a nice, solid team. I mean, Baylor's not a team that you want to overlook. They're still going to have some nice pieces. But I talked about it in the Oklahoma video, trying to replace a quarterback and running back, especially early in the season. A lot of things just aren't going to go your way. Now, Baylor could find a replacement by week 4. I just don't see Baylor pulling off the upset here. I think Iowa State's got way too much talent, and the Cyclones should be able to win this one. And they also should be able to beat Kansas. I mean, Kansas just by far the worst team in the Big 12. I just don't see that one being particularly close either. Then Iowa State gets their bye week here. If you're a Cyclone fan, let me know. Are you happy with where your bye week is? I'm kind of indifferent about it. I think there definitely could be better spots for a bye week. But you guys let me know what you think. So after their bye week, they get a road game against Kansas State. And I don't think Kansas State is going to be a pushover either. They are returning Skylar Thompson at quarterback. And they are returning, in my opinion, what's going to be one of the best running backs this year in Deuce Vaughn. Deuce Vaughn is incredible. He can run the ball. He's a great pass catcher as well. And I think he's going to cause some problems in the Iowa State front seven come time to play this game. But all around, when you look at it, I think Iowa State's offense is going to be too explosive. I think Iowa State's offense just is going to make the bigger plays. And ultimately, I do think Iowa State's going to end up winning that game. Then they get into the second half of the schedule that kicks off with a home game against the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Iowa State's going to look to get revenge after last year because Oklahoma State was a team that beat them last year. And in my opinion, Iowa State's going to get that revenge. Oklahoma State loses, they lose top target Tylan Wallace, and they lose top running back Chuba Hubbard. Now they are returning quarterback Spencer Sanders, and quite a bit on the defensive side. I just don't know that it's going to be good enough to contend with this Iowa State team. I mean, this Iowa State team I've talked about already, really explosive on offense and has some great pieces on defense. I think Iowa State's just going to be too much for the Cowboys. Here is another tricky road game for the Cyclones. Going to be playing the West Virginia Mountaineers. This is a tricky game. I've talked about West Virginia quite a lot already, but they're a team that I think can surprise a lot of people this year. West Virginia's got a lot of nice pieces coming back. And you saw last year, although the record might not have shown it, they were pretty competitive last year. I think a lot is going to depend on this game, on how both sides play. And ultimately, I do think it's going to be kind of a shootout game. I think it's going to be back and forth for a little bit, but I do think Iowa State's going to step up, make some plays, especially on the defensive side. And I think Iowa State's going to be able to get the win here in this one. The upset potential is possible here. And ultimately, when it comes down to this week in the season, an upset absolutely could happen, because Iowa State might be looking ahead to their next game, and that's the Texas Longhorns. I talked about it in the Oklahoma video. I don't know quite where I stand on Texas. I mean, bringing in Steve Sarkisian, like, he's a decent head coach, and he's proven to be a decent head coach when he was at Washington and at USC. He just hasn't proven himself to be a great head coach. But looking at his offenses that he was a part of there at Alabama, especially last year, was a part of arguably the best offense that college football has ever seen. Now coming into Texas, is they saw the Tom Herman experiment didn't really work out, but Texas has got to replace some talent. Keontae Ingram is gone, but Bijan Robinson looks like one of the best backs in the country. They have some nice pieces on defense, such as linebacker Demarion Overshone, I believe is how you say that. But the quarterback, that's the big position that Texas is going to need to fill. Now, once they fill that quarterback position, maybe they can get something going, but it is a home game for the Cyclones. I just don't see it. Sorry, Texas fans. I just don't see you guys being able to beat Iowa State this year. I like the Cyclones to win that one. And then another potentially tricky road game. Texas Tech, I also feel like could surprise some people this year. And while they aren't underrated in my mind, I think they are being overlooked, if that makes sense. Yes, there is a difference between being overrated and overlooked. Or excuse me, being underrated and overlooked. I don't think they're being underrated. I do think they're being overlooked. This team is bringing in Tyler Shuck from Oregon and Roderick Thompson. Of course, I've talked about him a little bit in my Oklahoma video back there at running back. And they got some nice pieces elsewhere. But ultimately, this is going to be a shootout game, in my opinion. And I think it also depends on how well Tyler Shuck has played up to this point for the Red Raiders. I also just don't see this one. I think Iowa State's going to have too much talent defensively. I think they're going to be able to come up and make some big stops against this Red Raider offense. And I like the Cyclones to get a win, building momentum before what is definitely their hardest game of the season. A road game in Week 12 against the Oklahoma Sooners. And this is one of the most important games of the year. Playoff potential, possibly Big 12 title potential, although these two teams will probably play again in the Big 12 title. But college football playoff race, massive implications on that. This is a huge game, especially late in the season. It's super hard to predict these games in the late season. But I talked about it in my Oklahoma video. If you saw the way that Oklahoma played this spring, you'll know that this team is poised to do something really, really great. Oklahoma has looked better coming into this season, at least as of right now. And while Iowa State has troubled Oklahoma in the past, I believe beating them 3 or 4 out of the past 5 years. I do believe it is 3. They have given Oklahoma some trouble. And I could see Iowa State winning this game. I really could. But I would be more inclined to pick it if it was a home game for the Cyclones, which it's not. It's a home game for the Sooners. And I do think that home crowd and just the way that Oklahoma has been looking as of late, I just think Oklahoma is going to be too much for the Cyclones. A very close game. Yes, it could come down to a game-winning field goal for the Sooners, but I ultimately think that Oklahoma is going to end up giving Iowa State their first. And when I'm predicting only loss of the season, I do think they're going to beat TCU at home. Now, I do think TCU could be a tricky team. They have Mike Evans back there at back that I talked about quite a bit last year as a guy that I really liked. Max Duggan coming back at quarterback. Got some nice pieces elsewhere. TCU is a team that can make some noise, but just it being a home game for the Cyclones, I think they're going to end up being too much. So as I just hinted at earlier, hey, everything's green except that one game against Oklahoma, which means I have Iowa State going 11-1. Now, I just talked about. Could I see them winning that Oklahoma game? Yes, absolutely. And I think it ultimately depends on how both of these teams are playing up to that season. Hey, who knows? Come my Week 12 predictions, I could end up picking Iowa State. I just don't know. 12-0 is that upper ceiling for me. I could see them winning every game on the schedule. I absolutely could. Going undefeated definitely could happen for Iowa State, but also 9-3. As I said, they got a lot of tricky road games on the road against Baylor, on the road against Kansas State, on the road against West Virginia, on the road against Texas Tech, and on the road against Oklahoma. And then there are some home games that could be troubling as well. Iowa, Oklahoma State, Texas, TCU. Iowa State does not have an easy schedule by any means. And if their talent does not show up, 9-3 could be worst case scenario. But I think this team has too much talent. I'm going to predict this team to go 11-1. That's going to wrap up my Iowa State preview and predictions. Hey, let me know what you guys think. You can leave a like, also subscribe and ring the bell. Again, I'm uploading a lot of these videos. You can leave a comment down below telling me what you think Iowa State's going to do next year. Hey, leave some comments down below of a team that you would like to see me preview. I might move that team up in my schedule. But the next team that we are going to be looking at is the Cincinnati Bearcats. Yes, the first group of 5 team that we're going to be looking at. That's going to come out tomorrow. It's the Cincinnati Bearcats. Remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll see all of you guys in the next video. Goodbye.